Good morning, fiber friends, and welcome to Fiber and Floral, a mostly knitting podcast. If you're new here or if this is your first time, my name is Becca, and I am a knitter, a sewist, a multi-crafter living in Berlin, Germany with my family. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy you're here. Grab a cup of coffee. Yes, I am still using my Christmas mug because I love it and I will use it year round. Grab a cup of something and grab your knitting and yeah, let's get chatting. Today's episode is all about scrappy projects that I've been inspired by recently. If you watched my 2025 intentions, you will know that one of the things that I'm doing is, at least for the first 5 to 6 months of this year, I'm not going to buy yarn. I have roughly 14 to 15 projects on Ravelry, and not including my current whips, that I can knit using all my scrap yarn or all my yarn that I've bought. And so I'm going to spend a couple months focusing on knitting with the amazing yarn that I have and see what I can come up with before buying anything new. This got me thinking, I have lots of one skeins. Specifically, I have a whole box of one skein colors that I don't really know what to do with, either leftovers from previous projects, or I planned a sweet shop blanket at one point before I realized that I don't like knitting blankets. I love the sweet shop blanket. I want to wear the things that I make, I think, and I didn't love it. And I also am a quilter occasionally, so I do prefer sitting under quilted blankets. And so I think it's just more, if I'm going to make a blanket, I would probably quilt it. Now, yeah, anyways, I digress. So I have a lot of these one skeins that are leftover sock yarn. And so I wanted to go on Ravelry and get some inspiration, as well as inspiration from my life, which you will see, and kind of share that with you. I think it's always really lovely to get these inspiration videos and to kind of research different ways to use leftover project yarn. So yeah, I hope you get some inspiration and maybe see some patterns that inspire you to use yarn that you already have on hand as well. Before I get to the patterns, I wanted to briefly talk about what I'm wearing. This is the Kintra Sweater. It is a pattern test for Rebecca Clow from Crea Bandits, and it should be coming out in the next few weeks. And I thought this was a good sweater to wear for this episode because I did use scrap yarn. Each of these stripes, she's designed this to where has 24 stripes total. So in each stripe takes roughly, I believe, between 5 and 7 grams of yarn. So you can either knit it with at least 4 colors and up to 24 colors. So it is a great stash buster. All of these colors are stash, and actually the white is leftover from when I thought I was going to knit a blanket. So it is all of these are drops yarn scraps of different DK weights. This is a great sweater. It's going to come out in DK and fingering weight versions. So this is definitely a sweater that I can wholeheartedly recommend to you. It is just stunning. Every time I wear this, I get people coming up to me and literally touching my shoulder and being like, "Oh my gosh, you didn't make this, did you?" And I'm like, I knit. Of course I made this. And they're just like, "No, but this is stunning." So I definitely will knit at least one more of these this year, I believe. One of the testers has knit this gorgeous maroon one, where it's the main color is maroon, a maroon purple, and it's got autumnal colors up here, and stunning. And then Rebecca herself is knitting one from an advent calendar, which that would be, I'd love to do an advent calendar one where each day as you open your advent yarn, you knit another stripe. And then she, the main color is green, I believe. And it's just, there's so many beautiful tester versions. You have to go check this out. It's definitely one that you should buy when it comes out. It is perfect for scrap busting. But it should be out in the next few weeks. I don't know if we have an official release date yet. But yeah, look out for that one. And so as I was arranging all these ideas, I was trying to figure out how to present them to you. Like, do I do accessories versus sweaters versus garments, or like kids versus whatever, or like, and I decided basically to go with weights of yarn. And so I've basically broken them down. The main sweaters that I have are DK versus fingering. Obviously with DK, you can always hold fingering double, so it's a win-win, but some of them do just call for one fingering weight held single. So I'm going to start out with the DK weight category, especially because that is what I have the most of. And I think that's what a lot of knitters have the most of is, you know, you have like that one leftover skein from a sweater project that you don't really know what to do with. Or you have some lovely sock yarn that you could double up that, you know, you have 20 grams of that left over. So I'm going to start with that. And first thing I'm going to mention is actually a collection, and it is the Sea Glass Sweater by Wool and Pine. I'm going to scoot over so that my picture can be displayed well here. And I believe she started with the Sea Glass Sweater. This is the first pattern that was released in this collection. But since then, she has come out with so many. There's a cardigan version, there's a hat version, there is a like mittens version, there's a mini version, like there's so many different versions. She actually has, if you go on Wool and Pine's Ravelry page, she actually has a whole scrap busting collection, which like is just perfection. But the Sea Glass Sweater is one I've had on my list for years. I really want to make one for either myself or my daughter this year. I have a bunch. I have like 4 skeins of this like really hot pink yarn that I got at my knitting club that I would like, I don't really know what to do with. And I think this would be really cool to do like a Sea Glass sweater for my daughter. I wouldn't, once again, I don't really necessarily have to buy the sweater. I think I could probably just use, there is no kids version. I could probably just use whatever DK weight sweater I have on hand and could work this out. But I will say the pattern that you can get from her does include how to knit all your ends in, so you don't have to like weave in all those ends. Like it shows you how to knit them all in as you go, and so you don't have to weave them in at the end. So that in of itself might be worth buying the pattern. And if I end up knitting a full-size version, would absolutely probably buy this sweater. But I think this is just such a great way to like use up all those one skeins that you have left over. And I just love the look of this. It is like chaos and elegance all in one, which those are 2 words that I wouldn't necessarily put together, but I think that just describes the sweater. It's so joyful. It's so happy. Absolutely stunning. And in her description, she also mentions that if you have like sport weight yarn, you could also add in a skein of sport weight or a skein of worsted every now and then, and it would be fine. So that's another plus to this sweater, is that even you could even use different weights, and she said she did that and it was absolutely fine for her. So definitely worth mentioning. You could use all the scrap yarn you have. The next sweater I have that is using DK weight yarn is the Patchwork Pullover by Claire Jackson of Perfectly Knotted. And this is a bottom-up sweater knit with the intarsia technique, and it's knit in the round, which I'm very intrigued by. I've done a lot of intarsia, but typically when you knit intarsia, you knit it flat. So I'm actually very intrigued by this sweater. There are not that many projects on Ravelry, and some of the reviews aren't great, but I think what I was looking for is basing this once again off an idea and inspiration that I'm drawing from. I love the look of patchwork. You'll see that it comes up a lot. I have some gingham socks that I would really like to knit in the summer, but I think if I were to knit this sweater, I would knit it flat and go back and forth using intarsia and then seam the sides. But I think this would be really stunning. The description says that each color only used 1 skein of each color, or you could even do it with like, just like whatever, like one patch per skein if you wanted like really rainbow. So, but I think it's really lovely. I think the colors she used are really beautiful. I could absolutely see me knitting something like this. I think it'd be a great autumnal project. But yeah, love this sweater, and I took a lot of inspiration for something I would like to knit in the future using the scrap yarn that I have. My next one is actually one that is on my Ravelry to-do list for this spring, and it is the Kimmick shawl by Anna Husaman, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She is a German designer, and she is so big right now. Everyone I know here is knitting her patterns. She is really famous for these like scrappy intarsia projects, and it just seems to be really big right now. And I just love all of her shawls. I'll post a few here before I land on the Kimmick and start talking about it, but all of her shawls are just so cool and incorporating all these different shapes and colors. I think the colors she chooses are just so stunning. Her eye for shape and color is just unbelievable. She is just a fantastic fiber artist. The Kimmick shawl is a triangle scarf knit from tip to tip, and kind of has these little pockets similar to patchwork, but like a little more free formed. And I think this will just be perfect for my DK weight scraps. I probably will pick a color scheme. Like my eye for color is honestly something that I'm developing, but I would like to kind of plan out the colors I use and maybe do similar like color families. And yeah, I think this is just really cool. And a great way to use like 25-50 gram scraps that you have around. Absolutely lovely. She's definitely worth checking out. Just like all of her designs are so scrappy and wonderful, and she is just so cool. My next inspiration, you could really use any yarn for this because I'm definitely just drawing inspiration from this pattern. It is called the Scrappy Stripe by Mona Kay, and what she's done is she has knit her body in a solid color and then done the stripes, the sleeves in stripes. And you could use any pattern, any yarn that you have on hand, but I think especially if you don't have quite enough of a sweater quantity, but like but you really wanted a sweater quantity, I think using stripes, you could even do like just like one solid color stripe back and forth, or like different colors of the same family. I think this idea of like just being creative with the yarn that you have, like this is something really cool that you could make and not have to buy any yarn, but use what you have. And it's such a neat idea. Fantastic project. And then the last, like specifically DK weight project that I'm going to mention is the Whitley bag, once again by Wool and Pine. Mainly because I think this technique that she does on her bag is so cool. So with this collection, she also has sweaters and hats and everything else. And this once again, go to her Ravelry and look through her scrap busting board. But basically what you do is you knit the garment or the bag or the accessory all in one color, and you go back and you just, sew in little stripes of color. You can use any weight, any color, and like you can even do this with projects that you've already done if you just want to take some scraps and add a little bit of pop of color. But I really like this bag. I've never knit a bag before, and I do love these drawstring bags, so this is one that I wouldn't mind knitting. You do need 200 grams of DK weight in a solid color, but once again, if you have almost a sweater quantity and wanted to make a bag instead, this would be a great project for that. But I just love the idea of like using scraps to kind of just like sew in little pops of color. You could do this on the edge of a sleeve or on the edge of a collar or like on part of like a waistband. Like I think just like using this technique to add pops of color and use the scrap yarn would be fantastic. And then lastly, we have the Warp Vest by Sarah Otteson. I had to include a vest, and once again, it's gingham, and I'm just really having a gingham moment. I mean, I think we all are. But this is knit bottom up in intarsia, very similar to the patchwork pullover that I mentioned earlier. This one is knit flat and then seamed together. You could use worsted or DK weight scraps for this one. This would be a great one too, like if you have like whole balls left over, you could do like 3 or 4 of each, or if you have like 10 grams of each, you could just do a patch until you've completed the vest. So many different options here, and I love a patchwork vest. I think they're so trendy right now, but also so classic, and that would be a great patchwork project. Moving on to fingering weight, but in the same style as the warp vest, I found the 9 patch cardigan or vest, which is designed by Julia Weissenberger, and I will make this. I am obsessed with this, specifically the vest version. I think is so darling. It's so vintage. It reminds me of a Hobbit. I think like a really lovely like to do the cream and then like some autumnal colors with some sock yarn that I have left over would just be, oh, it'd be so beautiful. Yeah, this is knit and fingering weight yarn, and it's just stunning. I absolutely will be making this year. It's adorable and happy and just beautiful vintage patchwork vibes. The next pattern I'm going to recommend is the Simply Scrappy Cow by Helen Stewart. And I love this one because I think it takes roughly 5 grams in each color of fingering weight yarn. That is like literally like you could hold that amount of scrap in the ball of your hand. So these are these little scraps of sock yarn that you don't want to throw away, because sock yarn, is especially hand dyed, is precious, but you don't know what to do with. This would be a great thing to just kind of work up along the year as you go. Actually, that would be really cool to do. Like I'm doing the 12 year, like I'm trying to do 12 socks this year. And so just like each month I do like a stripe from the sock that I do with the leftover yarn. And like at the end of the year, I have like a whole, like all the socks that I did this year. That would be really cool, actually. I might actually do that. There's still time because I'm recording this in the end of January. So just like 1 stripe a month and then 12. Anyways, this is on Ravelry. You do have to pay for it, but if you go to her website, the pattern is free and it's lacy and would be great for spring, kind of like an in-between cowl. And yeah, easy project with all the scrap yarn that you have. And then my last pattern that I'm going to recommend to you is the Scout Shawl by Floret Spiraling. There's also a mini version that's smaller, but it is once again a stunning triangular scarf that is knit from tip to tip, but in different little square sections. And it has such like lovely patchwork vibes that are very reminiscent of like quilting, which is why I love this, because I'm also beginning into quilting a little bit more this year. And I just think there's something really like, feels very vintage, but with a modern kind of touch. And I think definitely depending on the colors you used, could have such different vibes. I was drawn to this because I really want to do like a monochrome white version, like with like white, maybe like a cream and a marzipan together for like all the colors. But I think a really lovely scrappy version would be just as lovely. The scarf comes together with different squares using intarsia and Fair Isle colorwork techniques. And so each square only uses 2 colors. So depending on how much scrap yarn you have, you could absolutely just do a square using 2 different colors and 2 more. So even though she only uses 6 total colors, you could absolutely use as many colors as there are squares, and make this more of a scrappy. And I think as long as you were careful about what colors you chose and they're all kind of in the same family, this would be an absolutely stunning piece. I honestly could see myself knitting 2 or 3 different versions of these. Like I said, I've had my eye on like a monochrome version, but I absolutely want to knit one with at least 5 or 6 colors. This could be a great shawl to use up some sock yarn that you just have laying around as well. So these are kind of all the patchworky, scrappy projects that have been inspiring me lately. Like I said, there are a few of these that are on my list for this year, and that I definitely see myself getting around to, and kind of keeping these as more of inspiration rather than plans for how to go about using all these like single skeins that I have, because I don't want them to just sit in my house, but I don't want to just knit like 1,000 scrunchies to use them up. So I'm keeping all of these in the back of my mind as inspiration, and I planned to take the inspiration and maybe use patterns I already have and tweak these and see how it goes. But my goal of really using up my stash and having practically no stash at the end of 2025, and this is some patterns that I'm going to use to help me get there. So thank you for being here and watching. I hope that you also got some inspiration for ways that you could use your scrap yarn. If you have any more ideas or other like scrap busting projects, please put them in the comments below. I would love to add them to my Ravelry board and kind of keep them as inspiration for me this year. And I would love for you to hit the like button, hit subscribe, etc. I try to come out with one like chatty updates video once a month, as well as one of these like ideas, more topical based podcasts. Yeah, I hope you liked it. I hope you have a great day, and blah, blah, blah. So those are all the scrappy little patchwork projects I have for you today. I hope that you were able to get some inspiration. I know that I was, and I'm going to be keeping all these in the back of my mind, even if I don't buy the pattern or knit up the pattern. Definitely just keeping these as ideas for how I can use yarn I already have, and maybe even patterns that I already have, to tweak them a bit and use up my stash. If you have other scrappy patterns that you love, that you've been going back to time and again, I would love if you wouldn't mind dropping them below. All of the patterns that I mentioned will be in a Ravelry, I was going to say playlist, but board. I think it's called Scrappy Scrap Scrap or something like that. I'll link to it below. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Happy knitting, stay warm, and yeah, stay healthy. Bye, friends.